Ladies and gentlemen, boils and ghouls, and those who remain somewhere, somewhere in a middle place. It is now 10 o'clock here on the East Coast, and as usual, I have to go over here and share all of these videos. Let me just go here. How do I share myself? Why do I not know how to do that? It seems like every week I don't remember how to do it. It's so funny, isn't it? So we'll share that to Facebook right now, and we'll go live there. And then we'll go over here and share and copy the link. And then we'll go back over here to the Book of Faces, as the case were. And we'll switch over to the other account. Paste that there. And go live. Okay. Matthew, hello. Good to see you, my friend. Sweet Ciara, good evening. Lauren Morgan Richards, hello. Melissa R, hello. John Maxwell, good evening. Good evening. Great to see you as well. Hello. I am truly honored that you are spending your Friday nights with me. I am so looking forward. Horror Night podcast. Hello, good evening. Mary Jane King, good evening. So, ladies and gentlemen, boils and ghouls, and those who are somewhere in the middle, I would like for you to get your drink ready, get ready to enjoy. Pick your poison. My poison is strychnine. Mmm. And so tasty and healthy, too. Anyway, so get your drinks ready as we continue to read through A House of Pomegranates. I'm really excited to bring you options for the entire the next book. I have chosen a selection. I don't know what really most of them are, but they all have a certain theme, and I want for you. I'll post it on Facebook and on the medias of social, as the case were. I have several to choose from. Now, just from the name alone, I want you, my friends, to decide what book is next. We're going to start with Art Young's Inferno. Those of you who may or may not remember, those of you who are on my Patreon, I read it for you, but I did Hell Up to Date. This is from the same individual who did that book. So Art Young's Inferno, it's another look at at Dante's Inferno, but sort of modern to the 19th century. Next up is an interesting one. It's Speak of the Devil, an anthology of demonology by Sterling North and C.B. Boutwell. And it also has artwork by Salvador Dali. So we might be reading that one. The next one that I have for you, I don't know anything about it. The next one is on Satan's Mount, but I don't know anything about it, but it sounds a little kinky. The next one I have for you is a 1940, oh goodness, I think it's 1946. Nonetheless, 1940s book. It's a little bit newer than I would go for normally, but it's called The Devil's Lottery. And this book, from what I have read online, is about this group of people who suddenly win the lottery, how their lives change for the worse and for the even really worse. Anyway, so those are our options for the next time. In way of announcements, goodness, this is kind of my slow month. There's not really going to be a lot of announcements so far. It has been a lot busier for me at the Gentleman Psychic. So if you would like to have a reading, now is your time to book it. It is a new year, a new beginning. So go ahead and book your reading. You could book me through thegentlemanpsychic.com, or you can find me on the medias of social, whatever that may be. Can't wait to have you on our show, Horror Night Podcast. I look forward to. Lovely brooches, Mary Jane says. Thank you so much. You know, you can't really tell, but the tie is kind of it looks a little peach. It's a little bit more pink in person, but that's okay. I was trying to pull in the the pink in the tie with this brooch. And then this one is a little Italian brooch over here, and it's I two or three like this in different colors. And this one is, of course, little, you can't really tell, but they're little inlaid stones. All of this is handwork there, you can see it. All of that is inlaid stones. So little brooches make me happy. Also, I want to show you, this is one of, I have good eyesight. I mean, as one gets older, maybe I might need some glasses. Sometimes I notice things that I go, oh, maybe I could. But at the same time, I don't right now have glasses. And this is a lorgnette from the early 20th century, and the latch is sticking. I don't need them, but it makes me look interested. So if you say something that amuses me, I might go, nonetheless. Yeah, so I will be on the Horror Night podcast. I've got that. Hello, Malika. Good to see you. Love to you, my dear. I am very excited for what's coming this year. I know if you did need them, you'd make them classy as heck. Thank you so much. Very stylish indeed. I have a small collection of antique jewelry, and I've been collecting since I was probably 15, maybe before. I was, as a funny little boy, I would go into my mother's room, and her jewelry was funny because she kept it in the bathroom, and she didn't really even wear a lot of jewelry, which was really funny, but she would keep it in her bathroom, and I would love to use her bathroom, her ensuite, because I would play with all of her jewelry, and I would play it. Oh, you and another friend are getting sent 404 for your site. Oh, that's very strange. Okay, well, after story time, I will investigate. I don't know why that is. I will investigate. I don't know why that is. Um, Thank you for letting me know. I am intrigued by that. Oh, I bet I do know. I'll take care of that when I'm done, because I had I had my card compromised, and I was getting these weird charges. And so I had to change my credit card, and I didn't realize that was because I part of my weird autistic brain doesn't let me check my emails because I have 50, 60, 70,000 emails. I don't know how many it is. Let me just look here. I have 88,578 emails in my account, and I just can't. Anyway, that's part of my weird brain. Thank you, T. That was very sweet. Yes. So after I'm done with story time, I will go ahead and I will change that. So I was getting these weird charges, and the weirdest part was, I didn't notice them at first. There was a $17 charge, which I didn't notice, and then there was a $75 charge, which you would think that I would notice, but I didn't notice. And then there was a $100 charge, which was blocked, but I didn't notice until I looked at my account, and it said that there was a $400 thing that was gone. It was just gone. So I had to cancel my card, and I didn't have, it was chaos, but things are on the right track, I hope. Anyway, so we left off with this lovely, charming story. I don't remember where we were last week. Oh yes. Um, he had to tell all of these stories, and three times he was trying to get rid of his soul so that he could live with the mermaids, and his soul traveled for a year and then said, I'll come back in 1 year's time. So that's where we left. Let's see. Now forgive me if I repeat. So if you heard it last week, you heard it last week. There are 9 gates to the city, and in front of each gate stands a bronze horse that neighs when the Bedouins come down from the mountains. The walls are cased with copper, and the watchtowers and the walls are roofed with brass. In every tower stands an archer with a bow in hand. At sunrise, he strikes with an arrow on a gong, and at sunset, he blows through a horn. When I sought to enter, the guard stopped me and asked me who I was. I made an answer that I was a dervish and on my way to the city of Mecca, where there was a green veil on which the Quran was embroidered in silver letters by the hands of the angels. They were filled with wonder and entreated me to pass in. Inside it is even as bizarre. Surely thou shouldst have been with me. Across the narrow streets, the gay lanterns of paper flutter like large butterflies. When the wind blows over the roof, they rise and fall as painted bubbles do. In front of their booths sit the merchants on silken carpets. They have straight black beards, and their turbans are covered with golden sequins. Long strings of amber and carved peach stones glide through their cool fingers. Some of them sell galbanum and nard and curious parfums from the islands of the Indian Sea, and the thick oil of red roses and myrrh and little nail-shaped cloves. One stops When one stops to speak to them, they throw pinches of frankincense upon the charcoal brazier and make the air sweet. I saw a Syrian who held in his hand a thin rod like a reed. Gray threads of smoke came from it, and its odor as it burned was as the odor of the pink almond in the spring. Others sell silver bracelets embossed all over with creamy blue turquoise stones, and anklets of brass wire fringed with little pearls, and tiger's claws set in gold, and the claws of that gilt cat, the leopard, set in gold also, and earrings of pierced emerald, and finger rings of hollowed jade. From tea houses comes the sound of the guitar, and the opium smokers, with their white, smiling faces, look out at the passers by. Of truth, thou shouldst have been with me. The wine sellers elbow their way through their crowd with great black skins on their shoulders. Most of them sell wine of Shiraz, which is as sweet as honey. They serve it in a little metal cup and strew rose leaves upon it. In the marketplace stand the fruit sellers who sell all kinds of fruit. Ripe figs with their bruised purple flesh, melons smelling of musk and yellow as topaz, citrons and rose apples, and clusters of white grapes round red gold oranges, and oval lemons of green gold. Once I saw an elephant go by. Its trunk was painted with vermilion and turmeric, and over its ears it had a net of crimson silk cord. It stopped opposite one of the booths and began eating the oranges, and the man only laughed. Thou canst not think how strange a people they are. When they are glad, they go to the bird sellers and buy them a caged bird and set it free, that their joy may be greater. And when they are sad, they scourge themselves with thorns at their sorrow, that their sorrow may no more grow, may no grow less. One evening, I met some blacks carrying a heavy palanquin through the bazaar. It was made of gilded bamboo, and the poles of the vermilion lacquer studded with brass peacocks. Across Lacquer studded with brass peacocks. Across the windows hung thin curtains of muslin, embroidered with beetles' wings and with tiny seed pearls. And as it passed by, the pale-faced Caesarian looked out and smiled at me. I followed behind, and the blacks hurried their steps and scowled, but I did not care. I felt a great curiosity come over me. At last they stopped at a square white house. There were no windows to it, only a little door like the door of a tomb. They sat down the palanquin and knocked 3 times with a copper hammer. An Armenian in caftan of green leather peered through the wicket, and when he saw them, he opened and spread a carpet on the ground, and the woman stepped out. As she went in, she turned round and smiled at me again. I had never seen anyone so pale. When the moon rose, I returned to the same place and sought for the house, but it was no longer there. When I saw that, I knew who the woman was, and wherefore she had smiled at me. Certainly thou shouldst have been with me. On the feast of the new moon, the young emperor came forth from his palace and went into the mosque to pray. His hair and beard were dyed with the rose leaves, and his cheeks were powdered with a fine gold dust. The palms of his feet and hands were yellow with saffron. At sunrise, he went forth from his palace in the robe of silver, and at sunset he returned to it again in a robe of gold. The people flung themselves on the ground and hid their faces, but I would not do so. I stood by the stall of a seller of dates and waited. When the emperor saw me, he raised his painted eyebrows and stopped. I stood quite still and made him no obeisance. The people marveled at my boldness and counseled me to flee from the city. I paid no heed to them, but went and sat with the sellers of strange gods, who by reason of their craft are abominated. When I told them what I had done, each of them gave me a god and prayed me to leave them. That night, as I lay on the cushion in the tea house that is in the street of the Pomegranates, the guards of the emperor entered and led me to the palace. As I went in, they closed each door behind me and put a chain across it. Inside was a great court with an arcade running all around. The walls were of white alabaster, set here and there with blue and green tiles. The pillars were of green marble, and the pavement of kind of peach blossom marble. I had never seen anything like it before. As I passed across the court, two veiled women looked down from the balcony and cursed me. The guards hastened on, and the butts of the lances rang upon the polished floor. They opened the gate of wrought ivory, and I found myself in a watered garden of 7 terraces. It was planted with tulip cups and moonflowers and silver-studded aloes. Like a slim reed of crystal, a fountain hung in the dusky air. The cypress trees were like burnt-out torches. From one of them a nightingale was singing. At the end of the garden stood a little pavilion, and as we approached it, 2 eunuchs came out to meet us. Their fat bodies swayed as they walked, and they glanced curiously at me with their yellow-lidded eyes. One of them drew aside the captain of the guard, and in a low voice whispered to him. The other kept munching scented pastels, which he took out with an affected gesture out of an oval box of lilac enamel. After a few moments, the captain of the guard dismissed the soldiers. They went back to the palace of the eunuchs, following slowly behind and plucking the sweet mulberries from the trees as they passed. Once the elder of the two turned round and smiled at me with an evil smile. Then the captain of the guard motioned me towards the entrance of the pavilion. I walked on without trembling, and drawing the heavy curtain aside, I entered in. The young emperor was stretched on a couch of dyed lion skins, and a gerfalcon perched upon his wrist. Behind him stood a brass-turbaned Nubian, naked down to the waist, and with heavy earrings in his split ears. On a table by the side of the couch lay a mighty scimitar of steel. When the emperor saw me, he frowned and said to me, "What is thy name? Knowest thou not that I am emperor of this city?" But I made him no answer. He pointed with his finger at the scimitar, and the Nubian seized it, and, rushing forward, struck at me with a great violence. The blade whizzed through me. and did me no hurt. The man fell sprawling on the floor, and when he rose up, his teeth chattered with terror, and he hid himself behind the couch. The emperor leapt to his feet, and taking a lance from a stand of arms, he threw it at me. I caught it in its flight, and brake the shaft into two pieces. He shot at me with an arrow, but I held up my hands and stopped it mid-air. Then he drew a dagger from the belt of white leather, and stabbed the Nubian in the throat, lest the slave should tell of his dishonor. The man writhed like a trampled snake, and a red foam bubbled from his lips. As soon as he was dead, the emperor turned to me, and when he had wiped away the bright sweat from his brow with a little napkin, he purfled and a little nap. Oh, what? Bright sweat from his brow with a little napkin of purfled and purple silk. He said to me, "Art thou a prophet that I may not harm thee, or the son of a prophet that I can do thee no hurt? I pray thee leave my city tonight, for while thou art in it, I am no longer its lord." And I answered him, "I will go for half thy treasure. Give me half of thy treasure, and I will go away." He took me by the hand and led me out into the garden. When the captain of the guard saw me, he wondered. When the eunuchs saw me, their knees shook, and they fell upon the ground in fear. There is a chamber in the palace that has 8 walls of red porphyry and a brass-scaled ceiling, hung with lamps. The emperor touched one of the walls, and it opened, and we passed down a corridor that was lit with many torches. In niches upon each side stood great wine jars filled to the brim with silver pieces. When we reached the center of the corridor, the emperor spake the word that may not be spoken, and a granite door swung back on a secret spring, and he put his hands before his face, lest his eyes should be dazzled. Thou couldst not believe how marvelous a place it was. There were huge tortoiseshells of pearls and hollowed moonstones of great size piled up with red rubies. The gold was stored in coffers of elephant hide, and the gold dust in leather bottles. There were opals and sapphires, the former in cups of crystal, the latter in cups of jade. Round green emeralds were ranged in order upon thin plates of ivory, and in one corner were silk bags filled with some turquoise stones, and others with beryls. The ivory horns were heaped with purple amethysts, and the horns of brass were calandaes of sards. The pillars, which were of cedar, were hung with strings of yellow lynx stones. In the flat oval shields there were carbuncles with both wine-colored and colored like grass, and yet I have told thee but the tithe of what was there. And when the emperor had taken away his hand from before his face, he said to me, "This is my house of treasure, and half of that is in it is thine, even as I promised thee. And I will give thee camels and camel drivers, and they shall do thy bidding, and take away thy share of the treasure, and to do whatever part of the world thou desirest to go. And the thing shall be done tonight, for I would not that the son, who is my father, should see that there is in my city a man whom I cannot slay." But I answered him, "The gold that is here is thine, and the silver is thine also, and thine are also the precious jewels and the things of price. As for me, I have no need of these, nor shall I take aught from thee but that little ring that thou wearest on the finger of thy hand." And the emperor frowned. "It is but a ring of lead," he cried, "nor has it any value. Therefore take thy half of the treasure, and go forth from my city." "Nay," I answered, "but I will take naught but the leaden ring, for I know not what is written within it, and for what purpose." And the emperor trembled and besought me and said, "Take all the treasure and go from my city. The half that is mine shall be thine also." And I did a strange thing. But what I did matters not, for in a cave that is but a day's journey from this place have I hidden the ring of riches. It is but a day's journey from this place, and it waits for thy coming. He who has this ring is richer than all the kings of the world. Come, therefore, and take it, and the world's riches shall be thine. But the young fisherman laughed. "Ha ha ha ha! Love is better than riches," he cried. And the little mermaid, she loves me. "Nay, but there is nothing better than riches," said the soul. "Love is better," answered the young fisherman. And he plunged into the sea, and the soul went weeping away over the marshes. And after the 3rd year was over, the soul came down to the shore of the sea and called to the young man, "Fisherman!" And he rose out of the deep and said, "Why dost thou call me?" And the soul answered, "Come nearer, that I may speak with thee, for I have seen marvelous things." So he came nearer and crouched in the shallow water and leaned his head upon his hand and listened. And the soul said to him, "In a city that I know of, there is an inn that standeth by a river. I sat there with sailors who drank 2 different colored wines, and ate bread of barley, and little salt fish served in bay leaves with vinegar. And as we sat and made merry, there entered to us an old man bearing a leathern carpet and a lute, and had 2 horns of amber. And when he had laid out the carpet on the floor, he struck with a quill on wire strings of his lute, and the girl, whose face was veiled, ran in and began to dance before us. Her face was veiled with veil of gauze, but her feet were naked. Naked were her feet. And they moved over the carpet like little white pigeons. Never have I seen anything so marvelous, and the city in which she dances is but a day's journey from this very place. And when the young fisherman heard the words of his soul, he remembered that the little mermaid had no feet and could not dance, and a great desire came over him, and he said to himself, "It is but a day's journey, and I can return to my love." And he laughed, and stood up in the shallow water, and strode towards the shore. And when he had reached the dry shore, he laughed again, and held out his arms to his soul. And his soul gave a great cry of joy, and ran to meet him, and entered into him. And the young fisherman saw, stretched before him upon the sand, that shadow of the body that was the body of the soul. And his soul said to him, "Let us not tarry, but hence at once, for the sea gods are jealous, and have monsters that do their bidding." So they made haste, and all that night they journeyed beneath the moon, and all the next day they journeyed beneath the sun, and on the evening of the day they came to a city. And the young fisherman said to his soul, "Is this a city which she dances, of whom thou didst speak to me?" And his soul answered him, "It is not this city, but another. Nevertheless, let us enter in." So they entered in and passed the streets, and they passed the street of the jewelers. The fisherman saw fair silver cups set forth in a booth, and his soul said to him, "Take that silver cup and hide it." So he took the cup and hid it in the fold of his tunic, and he went hurriedly out of the city, and after that they had gone a league from the city. The young fisherman frowned and flung the cup away and said to the soul, "Why didst thou tell me to take the cup and hide it? For it was an evil thing to do." But the soul answered him, "Be at peace, be at peace." But his soul answered him, "Oh, be at peace." And on the evening of the 2nd day, they came to the city, and the young fisherman said to his soul, "Is this the city in which she dances, of whom thou didst speak to me?" And his soul answered, "It is not the city, but another. Nevertheless, let us enter in." So they entered in and passed the street, and as they passed the streets of the sellers of sandals, the young fisherman saw a child standing by a jar of water. And his soul said to him, "Smite that child." So he smote the child till it wept. And when he had done this, they went hurriedly out of the city. And after that they had gone a league from the city, the young fisherman grew wroth and said to his soul, Why didst thou tell me to smite the child? For it was an evil thing to do. But his soul answered him, Be at peace, be at peace. And on the evening of the third day, they came to the city, and the young fisherman said to the soul, Is this the city in which she dances, of whom thou didst speak to me? And his soul answered him, It may be that it is the city, therefore let us enter in. So they entered in and passed through the streets, but nowhere could the young fisherman find the river or the inn that stood by its side. And the people of the city looked curiously at him, and he grew afraid and said to his soul, Let us go hence, for she who dances with white feet is not here. But the soul answered, Nay, but let us tarry, for the night is dark, and there will be robbers on the way. So he sat down in the marketplace and rested, and after a time there went by a hooded merchant who had a cloak of Tartary and a bare lantern of pierced horn at the end of a jointed reed. And the merchant said to him, Why dost thou sit in the marketplace, seeing that the booths are closed and the bales corded? And the young fisherman answered him, I can find no inn in this city, nor have I any kinsman who might give me shelter. Are we not all kinsmen? Said the merchant, and did not one God make us? Therefore come with me, for I have a guest chamber. So the young fisherman rose up and followed the merchant to his house. And when he had passed through the garden of pomegranates and entered into the house, the merchant brought him rose water in a copper dish, that he might wash his hands, and ripe melons, that he might quench his thirst, and set a bowl of rice and a piece of roasted kid before him. And after that he had finished, the merchant led him to the guest chamber, and bade him sleep and be at rest. And the young fisherman gave him thanks, and kissed the ring that was on his hand, and flung himself down on the carpets of dyed goat's hair. And when he had covered himself with a covering of black lamb's wool, he fell asleep. And 3 hours before dawn, and while it was still night, his soul waked him, and said to him, Rise up, and go to the room of the merchant, even to the room in which he sleepeth, and slay him, and take from him his gold, for we have need of it. And the young fisherman rose up and crept towards the room of the merchant, and over the feet of the merchant there was lying a curved sword, and the tray by the side of the merchant held 9 purses of gold. And he reached out his hand and touched the sword, and when he touched it, the merchant started to awake, and leaping up, seized himself the sword, and cried to the young fisherman, Dost thou return evil for good, and pay with thee shedding of blood for the kindness that I have shown thee? And his soul said to the young fisherman, Strike him. And he struck him so that he swooned, that he seized then the 9 purses of gold, and fled hastily through the garden of pomegranates, and set his face to the star of the morning. And when they had gone a league from the city, the young fisherman beat his breast and said to his soul, Why didst thou bid me slay the merchant and take his gold? Surely thou art evil. But the soul answered him, Be at peace, be at peace. Nay, cried the young fisherman, I may not be at peace, for all that thou hast made me do, I hate. Thee also I hate, and I bid thee tell me wherefore thou hast wrought with me in this wise. And his soul answered him, When thou didst send me forth into the world, thou gavest me no heart. So I learned to do these things and love them. What sayest thou? Murmured the young fisherman. Thou knowest, answered his soul, thou knowest well. Hast thou forgotten that thou gavest me no heart? I trow not, and so trouble not thyself nor me. But be at peace, for there is no pain that thou shalt not give away, nor any pleasure that thou shalt not receive. And when the young fisherman heard these words, he trembled and said to his soul, Nay, but thou art evil, and hast made me forget my love, and hast tempted me with temptations, and hast set my feet in the ways of sin. And his soul answered him, Thou hast not forgotten that when thou didst send me away forth into the world, thou gavest me no heart. Come, let us go into another city and make merry, for we have 9 purses of gold. But the young fisherman took the 9 purses of gold and flung them down and trampled on them. Nay, he cried, but I will have naught to do with thee, nor will I journey with thee anywhere. But even as I sent thee away before, so will I send thee away now, for thou hast wrought me no good. And he turned his back to the moon, and with a little knife that had the handle of green viper skin, he strove to cut from his feet that shadow of the body which is the body of the soul. Yet his soul stirred not from him, nor paid heed to his command, but said to him, The spell that the witch told thee avails thee no more, for I may not leave thee, nor mayest thou drive me forth. Once in his life may a man send his soul away, but he who has receiveth back his soul must keep it with him forever. And this is his punishment and his reward. And the young fisherman grew pale, and clenched his hands, and cried, She was a false witch, in that she told me not that. Nay, answered his soul, but she was true to him she worships, and whose servant she will be forever. And when the young fisherman knew that he could not longer get rid of his soul, and that it was an evil soul, and would abide with him always, he fell upon the ground, weeping bitterly. And when it was the day, the young fisherman rose up and said to his soul, I will bind my hands that I may not do thy bidding, and close my lips that I may not speak thy words, and I will return to the place where she whom I love has her dwelling. Even to the sea will I return, and to the little bay where she is wont to sing, and I will call to her and tell her the evil I have done, and the evil thou hast wrought on me. And his soul tempted him and said, Who is thy love, that thou shouldst return to her? The world has many fairer than she is. There are the dancing girls of Samaris, who dance in the manner of all kinds of birds and beasts. Their feet are painted with henna, and in their hands they have little copper bells. They laugh while they dance, and their laughter is as clear as the laughter of water. Come with me, and I will show them to thee. For what is this trouble of thine about the things of sin? Is that which is pleasant to eat not made for the eater? Is there poison in that which is sweet to drink? Trouble not thyself, but come with me to another city. There is a little city hard by in which there is a garden of tulip trees, and there dwell in this comely garden white peacocks, and peacocks that have blue breasts. Their tails, when they spread them are like the sun, are sun-like discs, and of ivory, like gilt discs. And she who feeds them dances for their pleasure. And sometimes she dances on her hands, and at other times she dances with her feet. Her eyes are colored with stibium, and her nostrils are shaped like the wings of a swallow. From a hook in one of her nostrils hangs the flower that is carved out of pearl. She laughs while she dances, and the silver rings that are about her ankles tinkle like bells of silver. And so trouble not thyself any more, but come with me to this city. But the young fisherman answered not his soul, but closed his lips, the seal of silence, and with a tight cord bound his hands, and journeyed back to the place from which he had come, even to the little bay where his love had been wont to sing. And ever did his soul tempt him by the by, But he made it no answer, nor would he do any wickedness that it sought to make him to do. So great was the power of love that was within him. And when he had reached the shore of the sea, he loosened the cord from his hands, and took the seal of silence from his lips, and called to the little mermaid. But she came not to his call, though he called to her all day long, and besought her. And his soul mocked him and said, Surely thou hast but little joy out of thy love. Thou art as one who in time of dearth pours water into a broken vessel. Thou givest away what thou hast, and naught is given to thee in return. It were better for thee to come with me, for I know where the valley of pleasure lies, and what things are wrought there. But the young fisherman answered not his soul, but in the cleft of the rock he built himself a house of wattles, and abode there for a space of a year. And every morning he called to the mermaid, and every noon he called her again, and every night time spake her name. Yet never did she rise out of the sea to meet him, nor in any place of the sea could he find her, though he sought for her in the caves, and in the water green, in the pools of the tide, and in the wells that are at the bottom of the deep. And ever did his soul tempt him with evil, and whisper terrible things. Yet did it not prevail against him, so great was the power of his love. And after the year was over, the soul thought within himself, I have tempted my master with evil, and his love is stronger than I am. I will tempt him now with good, and it may be that he will come with me. So he spake to the young fisherman and said, I have told thee of joy of the world, and thou hast turned deaf ear to me. Suffer me now to tell thee of the world's pain, and it may be that thou wilt be hearken. For of a truth, pain is the lord of this world, nor is there any one who escapes from its net. There is some who lack raiment, and others who lack bread. There be widows who sit in purple, and widows who sit in rags. To and fro over the fens go the lepers, and they are cruel to each other. The beggars go up and down on the highways, and their wallets are empty. Through the streets of the cities walks famine, and the plague sits at their gates. Come, let us go forth and mend these things, and make them not be. Wherefore shouldst thou tarry here, calling to thy love, seeing she comes not to thy call? And what is love? Baby, don't hurt me. What is love? That thou shouldst set this high store upon it. But the young fisherman answered it not, so great was the power of his love. And every morning he called to the mermaid, and every noon he called to her again, and at night time he spake her name. Yet never did she rise out of the sea to meet him, nor in any place of the sea could he find her, though he sought her in the rivers of the sea, and in the valleys that are under the waves, and in the sea that are the night makes the purple, and in the sea that the dawn leaves gray. And after the second year was over, the soul said to the young fisherman at night time, and as he sat in the wattled house alone, Lo, now I have tempted thee with evil, and I have tempted thee with good, and thy love is stronger than I am. Wherefore will I tempt thee no longer? But I pray thee to suffer me to enter thy heart, that I may be one with thee even as before. Surely thou mayest enter, said the young fisherman. For in the days when with no heart thou didst go through the world, thou must have much suffered. Alas, cried his soul, I can find no place of entrance so compassed about with love is this heart of thine. Yet I would that I could help thee, said the young fisherman. And as he spake, there came a great cry of mourning from the sea, even the cry that men hear when one of the sea folk is dead. And the young fisherman leapt up and left his wattled house and ran down to the shore, and the black waves came hurrying to the shore, bearing with them a burden that was whiter than silver. White as the surf it was, and like a flower it tossed on the waves. And the surf took it from the waves, and the foam took it from the surf, and the shore received it, and lying at his feet, the young fisherman saw the body of the little mermaid. Dead at his feet it was lying. Weeping as one smitten with pain, he flung himself down beside it, and kissed the cold red of the mouth, and toyed with the wet amber of the hair. He flung himself down beside it on the sand, weeping as one trembling with joy, and in his brown arms he held it to his breast. Cold were the lips, yet he kissed them. Salt was the honey of the hair, yet he tasted it with bitter joy. He kissed the closed eyelids, and the wild spray that lay upon the cups was the less salt than his tears. And to the dead thing he made confession. Into the shells of its ears he poured the harsh wine of his tale. He put the little hands around his neck, and with his fingers he touched the thin reed of the throat. Bitter, bitter was his joy, and full of strange gladness was his pain. The black sea came nearer, and the white foam moaned like a leper. With white claws of foam, the sea grabbled at the shore. From the palace of the Sea King came the cry of mourning again, and far out upon the sea the great Tritons blew hoarsely upon their horns. Flee away, said his soul, for ever doth the sea come nigher, and if thou tarriest, it will slay thee. Flee away, for I am afraid, seeing that thy heart is closed against me by reason of the greatness of thy love. Flee away to the place of safety. Surely thou wilt not send me without a heart into another world. But the young fisherman listened not to his soul, but he called the little mermaid and said, Love is better than wisdom, and more precious than riches, and fairer than the feet of the daughters of men. The fires cannot destroy it, nor can the waters quench it. I called on thee at dawn, and thou didst not come to my call. The noon heard thy name, yet hadst thou not heed me. For evilly had I left thee, and to my own hurt had I wandered away. Yet ever did thy love abide with me, and ever was it strong, nor did aught prevail against it, though I have looked upon evil and looked upon good. And now that thou art dead, surely I will die with thee also. And his soul besought him to depart, but he would not, so great was his love. And the sea came nearer, and sought to cover him with its waves. And when he knew that the end was at hand, he kissed with mad lips the cold lips of the mermaid, and the heart that was within him brake. And as through the fullness of his love, his heart did break, the soul found an entrance, and entered in, and was one with him, even as before. And the sea covered the young fisherman with its waves. And in the morning the priest went forth to bless the sea, for it had been troubled. And from him went the monks and the musicians and the candle bearers and the swingers of censers and the great company. And when the priest reached the shore, he saw the young fisherman lying drowned in the surf, and clasped his arms was the body of the little mermaid. And he drew back, frowning, and having made the sign of the cross, he cried aloud and said, I will not bless the sea nor anything that is in it. Accursed be the sea folk, and accursed be all they who traffic with them. And as for him who for love's sake forsook God, and so lieth here with his leman slain by God's judgment, take up his body and the body of his leman, and bury them in the corner of the field of the fullers, and set no mark above them, nor sign of any kind, that none may know the place of their resting. For accursed were they in their lives, and accursed shall they be in all their deaths also. And the people did as he commanded them, and in the corner of the field, the fullers, where no sweet herbs grew, they dug a deep pit, and laid the dead things within it. And when the third year was over, and on a day that was a holy day, the priest went up to the chapel that he might show the people the wounds of the Lord. And he spake to them about the wrath of God. And when he had robed himself with the robes, he entered and bowed himself before the altar. He saw that the altar was covered with strange flowers that never yet had he seen before. Strange were they to look at, and of curious beauty, and their beauty troubled him, and their odor was sweet in his nostrils. And he felt glad, and understood not why he was glad. And yet, after that he had opened the tabernacle, and incensed the monstrance that was in it, and shown the fair wafer to people who hid it again behind the veil of veils, he began to speak to them of the wrath of God. But the beauty of the white flowers troubled him, and their odor was sweet in his nostrils. And there came another word into his lips, and he spake not of the wrath of God, but the God whose name is love. And why so he spake, he knew not. And when he had finished his word, the people wept, and the priest went back to the scarcity, and his eyes were full of tears. And the deacons came in and began to enrobe him, and took from him the alb and the girdle and the maniple and the stole. And he stood as one in a dream. And after that they had unrobed him, he looked at them and said, What are the flowers that stand on the altar, and whence do they come? And they answered him, What flowers they are, we cannot tell, but they come from the corner of the fuller's field. And the priest trembled, and returned to his own house, and prayed. And in the morning, while it was still dawn, he went forth with the monks, and the musicians, and the candle bearers, and the swingers of the censers, and the great company, and came to the shore of the sea, and blessed the sea, and all the wild things that are in it. The fawns also he blessed, and the little things that dance in the woodland, and the bright-eyed things that peer through the leaves. All the things in God's world he blessed, and the people were filled with joy and wonder. Yet never again in the corner of the fuller's field grew flowers of any kind, but the field remained barren, even as before. Nor came any of the sea folk into the bay, as they had been wont to do, for they went another part of the sea. I think that's where we end tonight. That was interesting. I have to do a little research in this, but I believe, my darlings, this must have been about the time that Mr. Oscar Wilde was imprisoned. Oscar Wilde was a good man, a lovely man, and he really wanted good things, and he was afraid his soul was evil because he wanted to be with men, and it was the 19th century, and it was illegal, and he wanted to partake of opium, and he wanted to have fun, but he wanted to be good. I think that's quite an interesting moral story. And even the priest realized that love was greater than anything. This sort of forbidden love between two people, two beings that weren't supposed to be. I think it's beautiful. That was a really lovely story. That was really lovely. Okay, well, I'm going to wait for the clock to strike, and I will tell you again, my loves. I would send you over to thegentlemanpsychic.com, but I have to go on and fix that because that was crazy. Yes, thank you. The wink got me. What is love? That was funny, right? Sweet Sierra says, "Speak of the devil is speaking to me." T said, "Let's go back up here." It says, Malika says she had problems with that. Mike Pope says he made it. Damn, how many years have you had the email? A lot. I try to clear them out. I can't. I get overwhelmed. I can't. Frankincense and myrrh are my personal favorite. I like that too, Ali. T says, you reading in the background while I'm doing stuff on the computer is so soothing. Thank you very much. Shroud of Grove says, I recommended using WordPress website building as the customer service teams are very competent and reassuring. And a blog ultimately wasn't lucrative enough. Just by keeping any of the books would be grand, says Lauren Morgan Richards. Greetings all, says Luna. Speak of the Devil is speaking to me. Love your videos. Thank you. Don't hurt me no more. The wink got me. What is love? Speak of the Devil or Devil's Lottery. Speak of the Devil is my vote. Those are very good. Okay. So one more time, I'm going to show you in reverse order this time. Next book. We still have one more story next week. I think it's one more story. Next week, I think, is a shorter story. This one was a long story, but it was a good one. So after House of Pomegranates, we have the Devil's Lottery. It's going to be reversed. I don't know if you can even read that. On Satan's Mount. Speak of the Devil. Art Young's Inferno. So think about it. I'll post them publicly. I want you to help me decide what to read, because I think it would be so much fun. The Devil's Dictionary by Ambrose Bierce may make good for short videos. I will have to look into that, Lauren Morgan Richards. And my friend Lauren, you should go find him. He is a Western author, and he is the author of The Goodbye Family, which I'm a part of. They're available on Amazon. They're these wonderful, charming little vignettes that are available usually every Saturday. I love his work. So Lauren Morgan Richards, that is his full name. And I seldom will call Lauren anything other than Lauren Morgan Richards. I feel like I have to say all three names. So go find my friend Lauren Morgan Richards everywhere. I wanted to wait for the clock, but we've still got 5 more minutes. Royal Princess says, thank you. Lauren Morgan Richards says that. Excellent. Thank you so much. Anything Sherlock Holmes? I did read Sherlock Holmes, the first book, several years ago. I think 2 years ago, maybe 2.5. I did read the first book of Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes is good. I enjoy Sherlock Holmes. And I tell you, there's a lot of self-exploration that I've gone through myself. So I'm able to admit that I am on the spectrum of autism. Things that didn't click, that they now make sense. They just make sense. What can I say? They just make sense. Part of we are organized, and then we're not. That's the sort of the way that it works. And Sherlock Holmes, people will people have pegged him as being autistic. Lauren Morgan Richards asked if I will be doing another murder mystery this year. I was thinking about that the other day, and I think you are right. I think I should be. I think I will do that. I'll look into that. I'll plan that. Would you like a murder mystery, my darlings? Would you like to take part in a murder mystery where you get to play? We'll do it on Zoom, and I'll give you an assignment. I'll give you a character. I think that would be fun. I think we should do another murder mystery. The clock has just about 2 more minutes on it. Allie22 says, absolutely, that sounds like fun. It is so much fun. So those who follow me, last year, when I was living upstate, we did a murder mystery, and it was just so much fun. And Lauren Morgan Richards, it was Val, it was your lovely wife, your lovely partner, who was the killer in the last one, and nobody knew until the end. It was so much fun. So yes, we might do another murder mystery. That could definitely work. It'll be on Zoom. I think I should read. I'll read the back of this book, or I'll read the synopsis. Where does it say? Speak of the Devil. These 34 tales of fantasy and horror have one thing in common. They deal with the devil, whether known as Satan, Lucifer, Beelzebub, Asmodeus, or some lesser demon. He appears here in a variety of forms, some charming, some terrifying, all delightfully evil. You will meet devils of many nationalities: English, French, Italian, Russian, Swedish, German, and Scotch, each quite recognizable from his brimstone smell. You will learn what happens when Satan comes to America, who really won the war in heaven, and what comes out of a gin bottle. Chosen critically from the great writers of Western literature, with an eye on the taste of the modern reader. The selection ranges from Stephen Vincent's Benet's The Devil and Daniel Webster, to pertinent selections from The Divine Comedy and Paradise Lost. There are famous names like de Maupassant, Hawthorne, Stevenson, Tennyson, together with such exciting new writers as John Collier and C.S. Lewis, creator of the redoubtable Uncle Screwtape. Sterling North and Clip Burtrell are both permanent bookmen, and their numerous prefaces trace the development of the devil in our culture and offer an entertaining and discerning outline of our social history as related to the netherworld. Partial list of contents: The Devil and the Broker, The Litanies of Satan by Baudelaire, The Devil in a Nunnery by Francis Oscar Mann, Foreign Devils, The Legend of Mont Saint Michel, Ghost Story, Of the Devil and His Works, The Devil George and Rosie, The Faust Legend, The Tragical History of Dr. Faustus, Faust, The Gin Bottle, Asmodeus, or the Devil on Two Sticks, The Devil Quotes Scripture, The Demon Pope, The Screwtape Letters, Satan Finds the New World, The Devil and Tom Walker, The Devil in a Manuscript, The Devil and Daniel Webster. Let's see. All right, I vote for Speak of the Devil. Okay, I think we might do that one. Oscar Wilde's grave has lipstick kisses all over it. He shares the cemetery with Jim Morrison in Paris. Oh, that's so sweet. Finally, the love grows. It grows beautiful flowers, and it's barren still, but it's beautiful. Yes, I think we might do Speak of the Devil. What do you say? Anyway, I'll go ahead and I'll make a vote to it. But Speak of the Devil. It does sound fun, right? The cover is illuminating, I must say. Anyway, darlings, I have a very busy day tomorrow. I have readings in the morning and afternoon, and then I'm supposed to be having dinner with a friend later on in the evening. So with that, I must bid you good evening, good morning, good night, and I have to go figure out the silly infernal website. You know, I'm a 19th century autistic person living in a 21st century chaotic world. But anyway, I love you all, and I will see you on Wednesday for Witches Coven, and I will see you again on Friday, and who knows. Good night, my lovelies. I love you. I appreciate you. Take care. Bye-bye.